Hi, and welcome to the Rebellion podcast. I am very excited. I have my very first guest on the show today, and I am thrilled that it is with the wonderful Yvonne Dam. I'm going to be introducing Yvonne in a mere moment. What I just want to say right now is that I'm very excited that we're going to have some very unfiltered conversations, that we're going to have some very honest conversations. I can't wait for you to meet Yvonne as well. And as far as coaches to follow are concerned, I would highly, highly recommend that you check out Yvonne, because there are so many coaches out there that are high in integrity that really need to be seen a lot more. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with Yvonne today, and that I get to share this with you today. So Yvonne is an executive business coach for driven CEOs who have too little time and crave to take their business to the next level of income. And through her programs and VIP coaching, she's here to help you scale your business while making it all feel like a breeze, getting you to reduce your working hours drastically. Isn't that what we all need a little bit more of? And when she's not coaching, you can find her indulging in beach walks and a sparkly glass of champagne. I absolutely love that. So I'm very excited to be welcoming Yvonne onto the show. Yvonne, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's very exciting to have you here. So, Yvonne, we're going to have a fantastic conversation today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about what it's like to be a 2-4 manifesting generator. So that's what Yvonne's human design type and profile is all about. I'm very excited to sort of have you here with your unique experience and unique perspective, and share some of the stories about what it's really like to be the CEO of your life and what it's really like to run a business behind the scenes. Because I think we see so much of a feature wall on like Instagram and Facebook and what have you. So welcome. Is there anything else that I've forgotten to share so far about you?
No, you're right on point. So all good.
Amazing. So let's get right in there. How did it all start for you? Let's get right into the beef. How did you start doing what it is that you're doing right now?
Well, I'll start at the beginning. I started my career as an international tax lawyer in one of the top 2 global audit firms. And I learned very well how to be very effective. I learned that we charge by the minute, and I learned to be very productive. I did very well because I climbed the corporate ladder, and I held leadership positions in HR, finance, sales and business development. And the last 12, 15 years of my career had been devoted to change management. I worked all over the globe, and basically I worked nonstop. So I got burned out really badly, but that didn't stop me, of course. I just, went back into it. And then at a certain point of time, I left the larger corporation I was part of, and I started at a small boutique firm where I kind of was exposed to coaching. And I thought, oh, wow, this is what I really want. And then every time when I moved, I thought, this would be my next coaching office. And I moved quite a bit. So I was like, many times I thought this will be my coaching office. And then it was actually in the UK, in my final year at a big corporation, I decided, well, I really, really want to pursue my coaching career. So I quit my job, and then I started my business. Now, it would be great to tell you, and then there's, it's history, and it took off, and I was like a millionaire. That didn't happen. What did happen was that I discovered that, especially when you're just starting your business, and especially when you're on your own, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of tough work. And being the high achiever, ambitious person that I am, I worked so much that I actually worked more than I did with the big multinational that I was part of. And that wasn't part of the reason why I started my business. I wanted to work less. And that kind of made me realize that I was a workaholic, like a true workaholic. So I decided then and there, I don't want this. I want to spend more time with my little one, with my family, just enjoying myself. And again, I would love to tell you that it instantly overnight changed But to be quite fair, it changed, but it's one of those sneaky things that constantly, their ugly head comes up and like, you need to work harder, you need to do more. And that's where I am today. I'm amazing at it, but it's always a work in progress.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'd love to zoom in a little bit on what life was like, or rather what life felt like when you were in employment, because like what we've just gotten was like a really nice sort of story of how you got there, which is exactly what I've asked you to do. But let's zoom in a little bit. Like, what did life feel like back then?
It's so fascinating that you ask me now, because sometimes, I mean, now I wake up, I go outside, the sun is shining, I see my pool, and I'll go like, this is the life, right? And then I remember how it felt when I was still employed. You would wake up early, already stressed out, getting, everything ready, jumping whatever you need, drop the kid off, rush through rush hour into the office. I still remember one day coming out of the train on London Bridge, and I don't know if you're listening, but you've ever been to London Bridge Station in rush hour. It felt like that Dolly Parton tune, 9 to 5, started playing, because there were so many people around me. And I was just thinking, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. Got into the office, never enough time, always enough pressure, didn't work for the clients that I necessarily would have picked, didn't do necessarily the work that I would have picked, but I was just one of those persons that I'm really good at what I do. And if I don't, I'll make sure that I understand. So, as a consultant, you quickly get into, oh, you do this, I've never done it. Well, we've sold you for so much, so learn how to do it. So, and I did, working with a team, making sure they were happy, and then catching up on your emails all the time. It just never stopped. It never stopped. And then going, rushing back home, feeling tired all the time, squeezing in, oh, I need to get healthy, so you do the gym, not do the gym because you rather watch Netflix, feeling bad because you didn't do the gym. So there was a lot of, if I look back, there was a lot of stuff I did do that I didn't want to do. There was a lot of stress, and there was very little freedom. So I think that kind of captured it. But the amount of pressure for always having to do something, even if you chose not to do something, there was always this guilt, but I've got this, I need to, because it never stopped.
Where do you think that guilt is coming from?
Well, to be very vulnerable, looking back now and having developed a lot back then, I didn't feel worthy. I if you would have asked me, I would have never given you that answer, but I'm pretty sure that was what was going on. I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel worthy. So I always was under the impression that I had to do something to impress someone, or to at least show them that I was worthy of things, unknowingly, because back then I was just thinking, oh, I'm ambitious. I just want to do the right thing. But now I'm like, well, I did the right thing. I just did like 300% extra. So it definitely was a worthiness issue, wanting to prove myself.
Thank you for being so vulnerable. That's always, I don't take that for granted, because these kinds of conversations aren't something that you would easily share with someone that doesn't know you, which is kind of what we're doing right now. So no, thank you for that. Would you say that your colleagues back then felt the same, to the best of your knowledge?
Some did, for sure. There was definitely something about, okay, always needing to work. I think a lot of them didn't realize what was going on. It was more like, the way we are supposed to act. we are expected to act, and mind you, I had a good paying job, all the everything, benefits. So on paper, a lot of people told me and my colleagues, you've made it. And of course you work hard, but that's one of the things, right? If you want to be successful, you need to work hard. You work 24/7. That's kind of what we're ingrained with. Do it, do a bit more, push a bit harder. Oh, nobody wants to do it, then you do it. So at least, people will notice you. I'm not sure, but I think on average, a lot of people struggled with it, unwilling to open up on that or think about it, because on paper you had a dream job, so why would you even doubt yourself or doubt how you were feeling, because you were so successful in that position? I think that actually causes a lot of this turmoil into people, because you're not always feeling it, even though you're supposed to feel it.
You're supposed to feel it. Wow. Why do you think that you decided to break out of this pattern? And why do you think others are probably still in it?
Well, I just really loved coaching. The best thing of my job, and I was a consultant, so I worked with a lot of people. The best thing I really felt was making other people perform better. That was what I loved. And especially, using their strengths instead of their weaknesses and making sure they use that. Right at this moment, I can say that I really feel that this has been my purpose. I got to be honest, when I quit my job, I don't think I had that purpose calling. I just felt like I was so fed up. And I just had this internal drive that I thought, oh, I love to help people. But I think a lot of people that are employed and may feel, not entirely happy, I don't think everybody does the self-development or the internal what's going on, because again, you're told you're successful, so why would you change? And some people truly like it as well, but I think the majority just goes on, get on. And the pay is good, there's a lot of responsibilities there, so I can't change it. Because even when somebody tells you, I want to change, the next thing is always, I can't, because we've got the golden handshake, right? I can't do it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing this. I relate on so many levels. And I think you and I, we talked about this in the past as well, because I mean, when I was working in the corporate sales environment myself, I kind of became really fed up, and I looked at all of my colleagues and I'm like, why are you okay with this? And everyone's just like, well, it's not always great, but you don't always have to enjoy it. And I'm just like, well, why aren't you changing anything about it? And so I'm always really curious to see, like, because it's not everyone, like, for a lack of a better word, I always think that becoming an entrepreneur is a bit of an act of bravery and defiance. Because you really want to stick that middle finger out to everyone and be like, okay, I've had enough of the system and I'm going to throw caution to the wind over that perceived security.
Yes.
So let's zoom in to what your journey as an entrepreneur then entailed, right? So you moved from these, I love the analogy, by the way, the golden shackles is one that I use myself a lot of the time. The golden shackles, the golden handcuffs. Let's move on from that to the time when you started your business, whereas or already while you're in sort of like the business that you are doing. So what did that then look like? Did being your own business owner, like, what expectations did you have of it? And what did it actually look like?
Oh, I love that question. So my expectations, I'll share one funny story that when I still lived in South Africa, I already felt like I want to be a coach. I had a job back then, also in a corporate. So I decided, okay, I'm going to be a coach, so I need a website. That was my thinking. Mind you, I didn't know anything about how to run a business. So I had a website built, and the website builder told me, okay, so who's your ideal client? I said, everybody can use my help. So what do you help your clients with? Well, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's a coaching question, I can help them. Right. Okay. So what's your program? I don't have a program. I make it as we go. I didn't do anything on social media other than reposting other people's memes. And I thought, oh, that's so funny. Nothing is happening. So right now I'm going like, oh my gosh, but that's really how I started. So then I decided I'm going to take this serious. And I went with a business coach. I really set up a program and I thought this is going to be it. I remember to this day that I had developed a program, also again, mind you, on my own, without any input of any clients. I just decided this is what they need, even made it into an online academy, yeah. And took me months, right? Months, never chatted to no prospects whatsoever, just like, okay, this is what you need. And then I decided on a launch. I had this Excel spreadsheet where I had calculated how many programs I needed to sell to make at least 100K. And I was convinced this was going to happen in like, well, maybe 3 months, but then I would be there, right? Little did I know that, of course, it didn't happen. Of course, my first launch failed. Of course, I did get clients. Because I just reached out to my network, got clients. They were enthusiastic about the program. But because I had so little knowledge about my business, I was disappointed. And I decided this isn't working. And I moved on to the next, whatever it was that I did. So in the initial years of my business, I did, my first program was about work-life balance for, people in the corporate world. Then I did career coaching. Then they asked me, do you know something about LinkedIn? And I said, oh, I know a lot about LinkedIn. So I did LinkedIn coaching. So I did like everything, but just a little, never with enough patience. So never anything would stick because I would already move on to the next. And that's where I found myself working day and night. If I say this, I go like, oh my gosh. Anyway, then I really zoomed in on what do I know? What's my past experience? What do I love to help people with? And what really works? And that's when I started to reduce my own hours drastically. I started to focus. In the beginning, I did everything in 2 languages because I'm Dutch. So I did it in Dutch and in English. So I really cut back and got to the core. And that is basically helping business owners grow their business in a way that makes you money without you having to work day and night. And I've never looked back.
Oh my God, there were so many similarities like when I spoke about this, and obviously I have the pleasure of knowing you as well as a friend, and by working together as well. But aside from that, there are so many similarities that I know of. Would you say that this trial and error, this, oh, well, I'm just going to try something. Oh, yeah. Do you think I'm good at this? Okay, yeah, sure. I'll just give it a try. Do you think that that's something that's actually necessary, or is that something that is avoidable? I feel like that's a trick question. It kind of is, but also I'm really interested in your opinion.
Well, I would love to say that it's avoidable, but I think if you're very strong-willed like I am, it's necessary because you have to make the mistakes. And let's be honest, I have often thought, oh, I wish my coach would have told me back then that it's normal to have a launch that fails. It's normal and you have to do it again and again. But to give her credit, I don't think she didn't tell me. I just think I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to listen. So I really believe that you need to what do they say, 4, 7 times, stand up 8. Because for me, it is also knowing that, you know, in a certain point of time, I flipped the switch. This is what I want. I have no doubt. I'm unemployable. I will never go back. This is what I want to do. And then comes the point where you start to admit that you're actually, I won't curse, freaking amazing at it as well.
Oh, you're welcome to curse. We're pretty explicit here. You know me.
You know, but you have to have a lot of experience. And yes, I think you really need to fuck up a lot of times before you finally go like, but you know what? I'm still standing. I'm still doing it. And the reason why I believe it's unavoidable is because your clients, they go through the same. They will all experience, you know, not being successful at something or having an epic fail, and then still need to get up and go like, oh, here I go again. If you haven't done that, you will never be able to relate, to be empathetic, or to understand them. Because you go like, well, to me, it all came like a golden platter. All I did was like, ooh, smiling camera, and I had a zillion clients, you know. By the way, if you ever hear those people say that, trust me, it's not true.
Run.
It cannot happen, you know. So yeah, I really think it's unfortunately it's unavoidable, until I would also want to say it has to do something with choosing you. Saying, you know what, I'm in it, I'm fucking amazing. You need to work with me. If you don't want to work with me, great, there are 10 others for you, but you need to feel that. And that has to do with the wordiness that we talked about earlier. But if you're not feeling it, it's not going to happen.
I wish I could do a mic drop that didn't hurt anyone's ears when they're actually listening to it, but you're going to have like my imaginative mic drop. Yes! It's something, I don't know if it was the first episode or the second episode that I ever did, where I talked about the exact same thing, actually celebrating what we consider failures, because I actually think that they're milestones. Like, congratulations, you're part of the entrepreneur club. So you had no one show up on your webinar. So you had no place, so no one bought for you. Congratulations. This is another like milestone ticked off. And I would actually like to see that these things are redistributed, because I agree so much with you. It's, if you haven't experienced it, how can you teach and coach and talk about it?
Yeah, you can't. You know, it feels devastating. And I remember the first one, I cried a lot.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my God.
When it feels just like such a personal rejection as well, doesn't it?
Yes. And also I think it's so funny looking back now. I mean, I how many people did I reach out to, you know? Compared to it's so ridiculous, but you don't understand that back then, because you're giving it your all and you shoot, but maybe I reached like, you know, 500 people, 200, I don't know, but like very, very little. And that's all. You don't take that into account. You all see those very successful entrepreneurs and you go like, well, they can do it. Yeah, but you need to understand what's all behind it and the road and the journey they have been on before understand, hey, I can go there as well. Yeah.
Yes. So let's move on a little bit further. So we've zoomed out to the beginning of your business. Let's go into what current state looks like. What can you tell us? What does now look like for you?
It's looking good. No, so I you know, my business is doing well. I have CEOs that I coach to really scale their business, but there's always that element of having them work fewer hours. And I run masterminds in a very, very small group because I love that. And it's called the Get Shit Done Club, because I know sometimes we have the biggest plans and we have so much heart. We want to do it, but oh, butterfly. Oh, you know, something happens and we're distracted.
Yeah.
That's where the club comes in and helps you. So I'm really having a ball. My clients are having the best results, and you know, it's fun. I'm growing. I'm going places. So all good.
I love that. Would you still sometimes find yourself back in this range of overworking?
Well,
Or have you found yourself along the journey overworking?
Yes. And I've gotten so much better at spotting it. Because being a workaholic is truly an addiction. You know, it's really an addiction. And it, unfortunately, we already talked about it, it stems from something internal that makes you believe that you're not good enough unless you push yourself and you push yourself and you work a bit more and you work a bit more. And back in the day, I didn't really understand how big of a thing that actually is, because it is not just in work, but it's also in your social life. And for those of you who are into human design, and if you're not, keep listening to Adina because she's the best teacher you can have. But one of my human design traits is I'm a hermit, which means I love alone time and I need alone time. And I do, you know. But being addicted or telling yourself you need to push yourself, you need to do more, can even go as far as that you think you constantly need to meet with people. You constantly need to have your whole calendar filled up, including in the weekends. And it took me a while to let that go. And now I'm like, hey, this is me, you know, I need time on my own. I'm very happy. My family understands that. And it's just, I could, you know, do that. But in my business, I found that I have a pattern that I've now fortunately started to recognize. But it's actually, and if you're listening and you go like, wow, fascinating. It's when everything goes well. So it's not even when it's not going well, but everything is going well. And I always eager to grow, go to the next level. I go like, okay, so now what can I do next? And then I go like, oh, you know what? Maybe I should power up my podcast more, you know, because I already have a live show. Maybe I should do the podcast. Yeah. I know it's a long-term win, but it's a good thing. So why should I not do it? And then, of course, I want to do it right. So I need to have, you know, an intro, an outro. I need to have people who edit the thing. I need to do it on channels. I need to do the marketing. Even just saying it makes me tired. Anyway, so I was like, oh, maybe I should do a podcast. Right now, I'm fortunate enough that I can see, oh, here I go again. This is my pattern. I'm actually feeling good, but it's not enough. I'm giving myself more work to do, which isn't like a tiny bit of work. No, it's a shitload of work because I'm feeling so good. So what happened in the past? Okay, I'm going to do it. So I would take on the work. I would get like, oh my word, this is way too much, because of course it was, because, you know, I had to do everything myself as well instead of immediately hiring someone. So, I had to do it all. Then I would say, oh, this is too much. Fortunately, I wouldn't burn it myself out. I would just say, this is too much. So I would stop it, drop it all together, take a bit of time off to recover. Was recovered, then I would be like, right, feeling good. What's the next thing I'm going to do? Oh, how about, let me do webinars. I love webinars. I love talking. Let me do the webinars. Okay, so I got on a new thing. So that would mean I would have half a podcast. I would have half a webinar. And this was the pattern. So in the beginning, I would take on something new. I would do it and I would burn myself out. Then I broke that cycle. I wouldn't do it anymore. I would stop it. And right now, I'm very proud I can say this, I kind of catch myself when I go like, what shall I do? What shall I do? Shall I do a podcast? Shall I do a webinar? Shall I do? And then I go like, or maybe I'm just happy where I am. Maybe I've already got enough on my plate. And then I look at all the projects that are still ongoing and I go like, yeah, no, I'm backing off. So it's always there. I think it partly comes with the former work addiction. It partly comes with being ambitious. It partly comes with being an entrepreneur where you see opportunities everywhere. And let's be honest, you get it in your face everywhere. Oh, start a podcast, you will make whatever. Oh, do a webinar. It's so easy. You know, that's out there as well. And it's partly also because the wordiness issue is always underlying, I used to think, oh, now I've beaten it, so now I'm good. But it's true, every level has its own devil, so you then have to beat it again. So I will say for me, this will always be a work in progress.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think that that's so powerful, and it's something that I would love to see more of when we have these conversations around like, hey, you know what? This is what it felt like. There are worthiness issues. It's something that continuously grows, because while we do see some people, at least from what I'm seeing in the industry, we do see some people talking about it. I think it's not talking about enough. It's just like, oh, in 10 days, you can overcome your imposter syndrome. Or in like, it's just like, wouldn't that be great? It's taken you 30, 40 years to build it. Oh, you can just get rid of it in like 10 days. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who wanted to start? Like someone who is identifying with what it is that you're saying right now, that they're just like busy all the time. What would you say as a normal human being, as a normal mortal, what someone can do by themselves right now?
So if you're busy all the time, and this is really depending on your preference, I must say, but an easy way for me would be to basically, and this is easy, but it's not, do I say it right? No, it's simple, but it's not easy. That's how I need to say it, right? It's simple, but it's not easy. Start by writing down all the things, all in caps, all the things that you've committed to, that you need to do, that you feel you need to do, and start by writing it all down, right? So it's going to be a massive list, I can already tell you. And include it's work, it's business, it's private, it's fitness, all the things. It's your mother, whatever, everything, because we all know that can take some energy as well, right? So, put it all down and then look at it and already see how much you are overwhelming yourself by making yourself do all of that. Okay. Now, first thing, you already may have forgotten some things. That's a good thing. Those are no more. Okay. The things you haven't written down, not important enough. So that's the one thing. And then if you really want to deal with it and stop the overwhelm, I'm going to stick to a business here. Ask yourself, what are the activities that can have the biggest impact right now in the quickest way that feels most easy for me? Okay. Very often we tend to do a lot of things that we don't find easy, we don't find fun, aren't even making us money, but someone said we should do it, or we read it and we're like, okay, I should do it. And so you keep going. A very important question that I like to say to my clients is ask yourself, would I be doing this right now, knowing what I know? Would I then start it again? Or would I have said, well, knowing what I know now, I'm never going to start? Because if you know what you know and you go like, oh my gosh, it's way too much work, you need to cut it. And there are 3 things you can do when you have too much on your plate. You either stop it altogether, and trust me, that is almost in 90% of the cases is the best. You stop it altogether. You decide that it's really something incredible important that's going to make you, I don't know, shit ton of money, or you love it so much that you really need to do it, or it's giving you a lot of impact, whatever it is. Do it in a way that it makes you a lot of fun, feel good, but then do it, and do it full-heartedly and focus on that. And then if there is something you need to do, but you don't like it, but it's like whatever, compulsory, because otherwise your website goes out of the air or something like that, either you find a way to make it fun for you, or you get someone to do it for you, preferably the latter. And that's how you stop it. So you start with the overview, you look at, a lot of the things you hate doing, those are off the list immediately. You look at the things you love to do. Okay, of those things, what's going to have the biggest impact, make me the most money, and feels like fun? That's what you focus on. All the rest, not now.
I love that. I'm gonna ask you a question around that right now. How easy, in your experience, do you think is it for someone to do it by themselves this way?
Not so easy. Because there will always be that little gremlin voice that tells you, yeah, but you have to do that. But you're not that lazy. It's only, this one. Oh, just do this one thing.
Oh my God, yeah.
Just do this one thing. And then I promise you'll be done. It's never just this one thing. Never, ever. So unless you're really experienced and you're good at saying, heck no, which I don't think, because otherwise you would not be in this situation, it's quite hard to do it on your own. And surprisingly, it's also quite hard to point out which are the money-making, impactful activities that you love to do. You would say, well, that's easy, but it's not. I find that when I speak to my clients and we go over these things, they often need me to say, well, why don't you do that? Yeah, but that's so easy. I can't do that. That's too easy. That's the whole point.
Yep.
So no, I think it's not easy at all, and especially not as an entrepreneur where we see all these opportunities and all the things. It's for my clients, it's never a lack of vision. It's a lack of, implementation and execution, and more a lack of being able to prioritize than it is that they don't have an idea. Here's where I'm going, and I'm great at that. It's more like, okay, you're trying to do everything at the same time. Yeah, it's just not going to work.
I remember when you put, like, it was really nice when you and I met in London together and you showed me the book that you wrote. And there was this exercise that you had in there where you write down numbers. And I think, was it the word multitasking? That exercise, I've never seen anything like it before. That exercise is essentially, to me, and feel like if you want to share just like a moment about it, I would love for you to, but you don't have to. That exercise basically explains what it is that you've just said.
Yeah, it's a great exercise. So if you're listening right now, if you're watching this, just grab a pen and a piece of paper and write down the word multitasking. Just write it down. Don't wonder about how you write it. Just write it down. Multitasking. And then what you do is you first write down the word multitasking, and then you number the letters. So M1, U2, and go on. Okay, so and just do it quickly. It's easy. You write it down, and then once you've done that, I want you to do it again, But then you start by writing down the M and you do the 1. You do the U, you do the 2, the L, the 3. You get it, but it's like letter, number, letter, number. Once you've done that, I want you to compare the 2 ways you've written the words. What is very, very likely to happen is, first of all, the first time was quicker. That's the first. The second, what you will notice is that the first time you wrote it neater. So it's like very neat, it's very straight, multitasking numbers, great. You will see that your second word, multitasking, is more like, okay, there's the M is a bit lower, the U is a bit higher, you know, it's like up and down. When I did it, I even made a mistake. I don't know, I did the L and the T got mixed up. And the reason for it is because you're multitasking. You're not focusing just on writing the letters, you're focusing on doing it. And that's what's happening constantly. And that's why you're losing time, you're losing focus, you make mistakes, and even worse, you feel bad. You never feel satisfied because you're like, oh, it doesn't look so great. It's a bit crappy. Yeah, but I've done it, but it doesn't look great, it doesn't feel great. And that's what you get when you try to do everything.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that exercise. And I think if we look at it, we sort of live in this world of, I like calling it the productivity trap. It's just like, do all of the things at the same time, because then you know you're good enough, then you know you're successful, then you like, if you can do all of these things at the same time. Like I see this especially in my family and in my extended family when they apply for jobs, like some of the job descriptions where they're just like, yeah, we want a marketing manager that also does SEO, but that also does like team management and OBM, like all of these like beautiful phrases. And I'm like, and they're still only paying you the salary of that one position. I'm like, well, isn't that great for them?
Yeah.
And it just seems that we now lump everything together. And I'm just like, no mortal, like to my knowledge, should be capable of doing one thing. Plus, I mean, I think it'd be a very sad world if everyone can do everything, because then you'd never really speak to anyone. No, so I love that exercise so much, because it really, I think it underlines what it is that you show people. The simplicity, I think, is a really good word that I have for this. Simplicity. What would you say is the thing, like, what would you say the thing that your clients get the fastest from working with you immediately, like where they're just like, oh my God, I didn't even know that was a thing? The meme of just like, I wasn't aware that was something a person could do. Like that real music comes up for me. What was the thing that your clients are just like, oh my God, like why didn't I think of that?
Well, very often the first thing I get back is, I didn't know that having a strategy to attract more clients could be so easy and so much fun and so focused. I always look with my clients, you know, what are you already doing? And what's the easiest for you? What feels the lightest, doesn't really take any effort. And then they can immediately tell me. And I always ask, so why don't we do more of that? And they go like, can I? Yeah. And then, you know, we take, okay, so how much income do you want to make? How much do you need to sell? So how many people do you need to? And then we just figure it out. And that's very often what we get them to do. Okay, so focus on that. And then they get results because they're focusing on it. They love it. They're good at it. It brings it in. And they go like, oh my word, I was doing so much other things that didn't have the same results. So yeah, I've got clients who, how do you say it? Quadrupled? Is that how you say that?
I'm sure we're both non-native English speakers. So all the English speakers, can you please tell us what the word is?
Well, you know, the business takes off. That's all that matters. And
just like there's more money now.
There's more money. There's way more money. And for me, what is most important is that it's something they already do and they're great at. Because I love nothing better when people work with their strengths and put them to use. And then you get these like, I wish I would have known earlier.
I love that. I love that. Would you say, and I'm sort of moving a little bit away from this question, but it's a question that I've wanted to ask you as we were talking, and every time, like, I could have this conversation for another 5 hours and it would just feel like no time has passed whatsoever. But when you look at where you started from to going through like the trials and tribulations of being self-employed and realizing, at least for me, I don't know what it was like for you, but for me, I was just like, oh, well, if I'm self-employed, I can work with who I want to work. I can make my own business hours. Like, didn't that sound great? Right? It's just like, oh no, I'm working more because I have this pressure of making money. I'm having all of the hats, etc., etc. So having to like be so disciplined with myself. It took forever for me to feel, you can't see the air quotes I'm making right now, to feel like I was successful, even if in the eyes of other people they were just like, oh, but you've just sold like a £12,000 program, or oh, but Adina, you live in the UK, you came from a different like background. Is there ever a point where you have felt like, oh my god, it's like I'm so unsuccessful, like what's the fucking point of it all?
No, of course not. I know I jump out of bed every morning going on top of the of my lungs. I'm so incredible, successful. Bring on this day, you know. Right, because I'm such a morning person. You know, yes, there are always moments. And I also think, and for me, that's a good thing as well. And because I recognize this in my clients, it's almost never enough, is it? Because when your business is growing, even when it's going well, you go like, what's next? And that's why I love, you know, you're not just always like, hey, let's celebrate, you know. It's something I always ask my clients, but then again, I tend to forget myself. So yeah, I mean, I take a conscious effort to celebrate big wins. I love champagne, so that's how I love to celebrate. Sometimes we now do cava because we live in Spain. Champagne is still a favorite though. But yeah, no, it's I wish I could say I always feel great and successful, but it's not. And I think in a way it's good because it keeps me hungry and it keeps me going. Otherwise I would be like, you know, oh, it's okay. But quite frankly, you know, you could be a bit more proud of what you already achieved and just celebrate a bit more, because otherwise you become one of those goats, right? They always keep on moving up. They're never happy, but they're always like, oh, I'm always almost falling off. I don't want to be a goat. They smell, you know. I just want to be happy on my sun lounger and drink it in. So it's definitely something that's work in progress, but it's getting better. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I would have to agree with you for sure, and it's something that I never really have a problem saying this, like even probably on like a 6 monthly basis I would be like, oh my god, what's it all for? It's when I made an episode about this, it was very clear, like to me it's just like, are you even an entrepreneur if you don't feel that way? It's almost a bit of a trick question when I say that, because it like, you're in the arena, you're fighting the fight. If you like, show me one professional athlete, one professional boxer, like if we're just going in the physical world, if they aren't like beaten down, where they're just like, yeah, this is fine, I'm enjoying this, Yeah, it's cool. I love being bruised and battered. It's fantastic, right? So to me, this is just like the getting up part, I think, for me, that you've also mentioned. It's just, that's the thing. It's just like, okay, so you get back up, so you try again, trials and tribulations. And so I love that you say that, because I think it's very easy, and probably in your industry as well, to get this pressure that if you're not feeling successful and aligned all the time, then you're doing it wrong. And I think that's like the biggest load of bullshit ever. I almost want to normalize this feeling of like, you're allowed to feel like everything's dark for a moment. It's what you do with that
Yes.
that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, even the most successful CEOs that I coach, they feel the same. They are still happy when I tell them, I love to work with you because I see something in you. They go like, oh, okay. So I think it never stops. Unless you're like, you've got a complex that you feel like you're on top of the world. What's it called? A God complex. Maybe
Yep.
then you don't have it. But otherwise, I think it's very normal. And it's something to admit, because you're right. It's too often that people say, oh, you can't feel. You always have to be upbeat. You always have to see a positive, and there's always something to be grateful for. And there is, let's be honest, there's so much to be grateful for,
Absolutely.
But there's nothing wrong with admitting, I'm not feeling it today. But I also honestly believe that's why there are coaches, and that's why you have friends, and that's why you have business buddies, because it can be very lonely. Doesn't matter if you're companies, but it can be very, very lonely. So you don't have to do it alone. So use that, because nothing better than to moan, to let it all out, have someone perk you up, and then continue to enjoy yourself. That's the one thing. Don't stick with it. Get it out, get it over, acknowledge it. Don't push it away, because if you push it away, it will, hit you in the face like double force. And then you move on.
I love that so much. I think it's so important that these conversations are had, because you've touched on this very early, and we'll close this out in a second, but you've touched on this very early, and I certainly relate to this a lot as well, where it's very easy to become defeated and to feel like, oh my God, I have to prove myself. I have to do all of the things. I have to, like, my business is on my mind all the time. So if I just message one or two people, that should be enough. I don't want to bother them. So there's so many ways that I think celebrating the downs as well as the ups, I think, is so important. And I think they also make us better people, just because, like you said, they keep us grounded, they keep us hungry, they keep us looking for something more. And it's not about being a victim to the challenges. It's just, how do you rise above them? How do you meet the challenges? How do you break your own glass ceiling, if you will? So thank you for this conversation. So Yvonne, before we sort of close this out, can you tell us, for anyone who, and I absolutely would encourage and invite all of you to give Yvonne a follow. Her advice is absolute gold. Where can people find you? Where do you hang out? And you talked about your Get Shit Done Club earlier. What can you tell people about this?
Well, people can find me on my website, which is amaze or how do you say that? A little stripe.
I'll put the links in the show notes later that you mentioned.
Yourself.com, that's my website. There you can find everything for me. You can find me on LinkedIn, just under my name, Yvonne Dam. I'm on Instagram as well. So just connect with me. I love to chat. What can I tell you about my Get Shit Done Club? Well, if you really feel overwhelmed, or if you're really ready to, in an easy way, reach your goals with help, then the Get Shit Done Club is an amazing place to start. I can tell you why I'm so excited about it, because it's a very small mastermind with only 4 people.
Nice.
So 4 people and me. So it's really comfy. It really feels safe. And we meet every week. So you set your goals, and every week we check in. How are you doing? Do you need help? What's going on? But because you are always in that small group, you're no longer alone, and you get the support, and you get the brilliant ideas, you get the fresh perspectives. And more importantly, I have one client who was working 7 days a week. We worked on her planning, we worked on her pricing. She's now gone back to 3, still making the same amount of money. I have one entrepreneur who's been an entrepreneur for 20 years. He's had his best financial month ever as part of the club. And I have one, and I think she said her revenue had gone up in 200%. So, and it's I love it because it's also very, very low priced. So you don't have to leave it because you can't afford it. It's just my way of helping as many people as I can. And if you want to test it, because there's always a trial, do it. Just join us for one time, see whether you like it. And if you like it, join. And because this is the first episode, Dina, and I'm so happy to be here, for everybody who's listening, if you decide to join after listening to this, and you mentioned that you heard our interesting conversation, tell me so, and you will get one strategy session from me before joining the club. So it's like, okay, I need to have a strategy. We'll draft a strategy together. You get one session, and then in the club you go, and off you go, because I can tell you that that's what the club takes care of. But I know many of us don't really have a plan or a strategy. So I'll help you draft that in a very, very concise way. And then that's my gift for you listening or joining or subscribing to this podcast, because you should, it's amazing, and helping you along. So yeah.
That's so amazing, and how very generous of you. I will put all of the links that you've mentioned in the show notes, and where you can find out how to sign up for a taster session for the Get Shit Done Club as well. And yes, send Yvonne a message if you are deciding to join, so that you can take her up on the strategy session. You've heard some of the things that she's helped her clients achieve, and it's not even about necessarily the achievement and doing more, but the point is, we touched very briefly on this, the whole entrepreneurship journey. This is probably another conversation for you and I in the future. It can be very lonely, and just having someone else help you with it, even if you know how to do it. I can't tell you how many times, I think we both had the conversation as well, how many times I'm just like, yeah, I know, like, I'm very good at telling other people how to do what it is that I'm doing, but like taking my own medicine, it's just like, that shit ain't easy. So even if you know how to do your own strategy, even if you know how to get shit done by yourself, honestly, just give it a try. At the very worst, you've gotten to know someone who's really, really cool, and you've seen another perspective, and you've experienced something new. But I'll put everything in the show notes. So thank you so much, Yvonne, for being here. It was an absolute delight, as per usual. And thank you for listening to the episode.